The internet has exploded yet again thanks to Taylor Frankie Paul and her tumultuous relationship with Dakota Mortensen. Now, if you haven't been following along, I have made multiple videos on this topic. Feel free to go back and watch those if you want a little more context. And for the love of God, I hope this is the last video I have to make. Now, if you are a returning viewer of this channel, you're like, when did you get into reality news, Aaron? Well, we can't forget that Taylor Frankie Paul is in Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So I consider this to be cult adjacent. And I do think that some of the behavior is in part due to the Mormon church not being so open and helpful about actual legitimate mental health help. Throughout this series of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, we see people in therapy, but what they're really doing is in therapy or going to a spiritual healer or a counselor that is suggested to them by their bishop at the church. So it's going to be skewed. It's not going to be an unbiased third party necessarily. And I firmly believe that if the two individuals involved in this situation were getting actual, real psychological help, maybe things would have been different over the last 3 years. But that's just my soapbox, so please sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Now, yesterday, for the first time since their DV case became national news, Taylor Frankie Paul and Dakota Mortensen were actually in the same room. And it wasn't on a reality show and it wasn't arguing on TikTok. It was in a 28-seat courtroom at the Matheson Courthouse in Salt Lake City in front of 3rd District Court Commissioner Russell Muniz, with their lawyers, their families, pool cameras, and a court-appointed attorney for their 2-year-old son. Neither acknowledged the other person. Taylor showed up late, unsurprisingly, wearing a neutral outfit with a Louis Vuitton tote over her shoulder, but Dakota was already seated, and they didn't even look at each other, they didn't speak to each other, and for nearly 2 hours, their lawyers did all the talking. And what came out of that courtroom kind of reframes this entire story. Now, Commissioner Muniz granted mutual protective orders. Both Taylor and Dakota must stay 100 feet apart at all times for the next 3 years. And if either violates the order, they actually will face criminal charges. No custody decision was yet made, and the judge will issue a written recommendation by May 11th with a review hearing set for June 1st. So until then, Taylor is still only allowed to visit her son Ever 6 hours supervised every single week. And apparently, over the last 3 weeks, she's actually missed some of those very limited windows of time anyways, which is just like, what do you mean? You're not spending the very limited amount of time you have with your child. Of course, maybe that is alleged, but let's continue. Because the ruling itself isn't the story. The story is what the judge said, what the lawyers revealed, and the single moment at the end that nobody expected. Now, Commissioner didn't mince words. After nearly 2 hours of competing narratives from both legal teams, he offered his own characterization of the two people in front of him. He actually described Taylor's behavior as reactive, and he described Dakota's behavior as calculating. So, within that framework, it does tell you exactly how this judge is reading the situation, and it doesn't really flatter either party. And I think this is what a lot of us have been observing online anyways, that Taylor is the reactive one. She escalates the moment. She responds to provocation with physical aggression and loses complete control when she's triggered. And this tracks with the 2023 Barstool video. It tracks with the body cam footage, and it tracks with the Guardian ad litem's concerns about her volatility. And now it doesn't excuse what she did at all, but it does frame it as impulsive rather than premeditated. Now, calling Dakota calculated is actually pretty spot on, in my opinion, because it kind of exposes him as being someone who operates very strategically, who makes deliberate choices designed to produce a specific outcome. Now, Taylor's attorney did spend a significant portion of the hearing arguing that Dakota leaked the 2023 video to TMZ to try to destroy her career 3 days prior to the Bachelorette premiere. And then Dakota's attorney denied it, but the judge's language, calculating, kind of suggests that he found at least some of that argument persuasive. Minas also acknowledged that the two have a very toxic relationship, and that's paired with this continuing attraction to each other, he said. He says directly, quote, "I'm hoping that you're not people who just thrive on the drama and the conflict. You've got to put your child first and shield the child from this conflict," unquote. And he reminded them that they are linked together for the rest of their lives, that they'll be at the same graduations, the same weddings, and they'll be grandparents to the same grandchildren. He said, quote, "You have to figure out how to function as co-parents. This has been dysfunctional. This is a lifelong proposition between the two of you." The commissioner also noted that all of the evidence suggests that these two cannot share a physical space without things escalating into violence. So that's why the protective orders are mutual, and that's why they last 3 years. Basically, either party could be held accountable federally if they get within 100 feet of each other. So it's definitely not a slap on the wrist. This is a court telling two people that proximity itself is actually dangerous. So let's kind of break down what each side has alleged. Taylor's attorney, Eric Swingard, came prepared to reframe the narrative. He presented several allegations against Dakota that hadn't previously been made public in this level of detail. So first we have the May 27th, 2025 incident, which came to light at the prior hearing. Now, Swinard alleged that during an altercation, Taylor fell to the ground and Dakota kicked her repeatedly in the leg while she was down. He submitted photos of what he described as significant bruising to the court. And this is a different incident from the truck tussle that was discussed at the April 7th hearing. It's a second alleged physical by Dakota from nearly a year ago. Secondly, the lawyer returned to the February 2026 incident and added a new allegation that hadn't been reported before. He claimed that during the altercation, Dakota drove off in the vehicle with Taylor still inside against her wishes, effectively taking her against her will while leaving their young son Ever home alone. And this was briefly touched on at the prior hearing, but I don't think as much weight was placed on it as was in this hearing. And I even talked about it in my last video when I actually reacted live to that hearing, because why would any parent leave a 2-year-old child unattended in a home when both parents are moving in a vehicle away from the home during a allegedly physically violent dispute? Now, Swinard argued that the police reports from that night cut both ways and that Dakota has not been the passive victim that he's trying to present himself to be. Swinard argued directly that Dakota was responsible for leaking the 2023 video to TMZ. He told the court, quote, "Our point with the video is he's not just trying to come after her for custody. He's not just trying to seek a protective order. He wants to literally destroy her," unquote. Dakota's attorney denied that his client leaked the video, but Taylor's team didn't stop at accusation. They actually brought in a witness statement by none other than Jessie Draper herself. Now, this is the detail that elevates the video leak allegation from suspicion into sworn testimony. Taylor's Mormon Wives castmate, Jessie Draper, filed an affidavit in the case on April 29th, the day before the hearing. And according to Swinard's presentation of Draper's statement in court, Draper described a scene that took place in her basement just days before TMZ published the 2023 video. Dakota was there with Draper's now estranged husband, Jordan, and I cannot pronounce his last name. He's just Jordan. and then another man who is believed to be Dakota's roommate. Draper said that Dakota was very animated and venting his frustrations that police were not doing anything about the DV reports that he had filed against Taylor. According to Draper's affidavit, Dakota then told the group that he was going to take matters into his own hands to embarrass Taylor, unquote. And then the critical line, Draper claims Dakota specifically told the group that he intended to leak the video to the media. And days later, TMZ published it, 3 days before the Bachelorette premiere, on their son's 2nd birthday. Now, Dakota's attorney denied the leak allegation, but Draper's affidavit is now part of the court record, a sworn statement from a castmate who says that she was in the room when Dakota announced his intention. So whether the judge ultimately finds it credible is a separate question. But the fact that Taylor's team was able to produce a named witness willing to go on record under oath is very significant because it becomes testimony. It becomes public record. And now I do want to address the Jessie Draper of it all because netizens have been pointing out that she has been contradicting herself and she could be held responsible for trying to mislead the court if it is found that her testimony wasn't truthful. There was actually a voice memo leaked today where she reached out to Dakota and asked if he could show the DV videos to the other women on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives cast. Now, here's what kind of went down. Before all of this Taylor Frankie Paul drama dropped, Dumois on Instagram released a blind item that said there is a very, very popular reality television show where basically it's all of the cast members versus one cast member. And those women do not want to film with this cast member anymore because they were concerned with her escalating behavior. And very, very quickly, the public discovered that it was probably Secret Lives of Mormon Wives not wanting to film with Taylor anymore. Now, the whole cast had this meeting with Disney executives, because Disney and Hulu are essentially the same company now, and said, hey, we really need you to address Taylor's behavior before we continue, because it just seemed to continue to escalate. And apparently, according to Jessie's voice note, the producers were, to use her word, gaslighting the women and trying to tell them like, oh, it's not that bad. The allegations are not that bad. And Jessie's voice note kind of hints to the fact that some of the women were believing the Hulu Disney executives over what Dakota was saying, over what some of them knew, and over what they had witnessed within this very toxic dynamic between Dakota and Taylor in the past. So Jessie actually left this voice note to Dakota asking him, can you please show these videos to the other women? Because we need to get all of the women on board because they don't necessarily believe it. They aren't very, very firm. And I know that they would really be holding firm against Taylor if they watched this footage.
Hey, just wanted to send you a voice note because I don't know how much Jordan has told you about what's going on like production's end, but pretty much everyone's in alignment as far as the cast goes about not really wanting to publicly support Taylor at the moment with the Bachelorette stuff, just because we all feel so uneasy about if this comes out, and just honestly, morally, none of us can just sit by and be like, oh my gosh, we're so excited for her when we know the truth. And we all feel that way, but we are having like production and management gaslight the fuck out of us. And Danielle specifically is just like saying crazy things like, you guys have no idea, like she's the victim, it's all him and crew are making things up. And they're definitely trying to spin that narrative to protect her in the show. And I think we're all, as parents, just like, this isn't okay. Like, we know that this situation's dangerous and it needs to change. And if she gets away with this with no consequences, then like, it's not good for anyone, especially the kids. So my question for you is, I do feel like some of them need to see the videos just because we all feel a certain way about it and we all are aligned, which is good. But I do think it would help them not get gaslit by production and management, because I think they're trying to spin a story that like, you guys don't really know what's going on and Dakota's lying. And I just feel like it would be helpful if some of them saw. I don't know how many are interested in seeing them. I know Michaela is for sure. She's actually the most vocal about this right now. And she's like, I don't want anything to do with this. And I think it's disgusting if you guys are trying to hide this. So if you don't feel comfortable with it, that's totally fine. And I don't want to like bombard you or like pressure you to do it. But I do think if all of us are going to kind of stand up and like say what we feel and like stand firm in it, I think it would help them if they've seen it. Me and Macy have told them and like they believe us, but I just think it would help us not all get gaslit. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I hope you're doing okay. I know this is freaking hard right now, and I'm sure both you and Taylor are struggling. And that's what freaking sucks about this is no one wins. Like at the end of the day, no matter what happens, no one wins. Like everyone's in pain, everyone's hurting. The kids are hurting. You guys like, and I love Taylor, and I just am sad that it's gotten to this point. And but I honestly think something needs to happen for her to learn some lessons. And I hope this is helping you too. I know it's probably really, really hard. So I just wanted to let you know that we're all thinking about you and Ever especially and Taylor too. Like we're all just so sad about this. So anyway, sorry, I just like rambled on. You can call me too, but just let me know how you feel about that and if it's even something you're open to. And again, no pressure. I just kind of think it would help since a narrative's definitely being spun.
So this audio is leaked, but then you have Jessie Draper trying to defend herself in her stories while simultaneously commenting to people saying, I never sent anyone a voice note. If there's a voice note from me, somebody was recording me without my knowledge. And it's like, okay, girl, like, which is it? Which is it? Did you send the voice note or did somebody else secretly record you? But then the voice note gets leaked and it's just like, oh, well, me and Taylor talked about all of that. So, like, Taylor forgave me. We're healing together, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, you can't just like jump on the bandwagon of whomever is popular at the time and like not have a really strong backbone when you actually were trying to like lead the charge with the women against Taylor. And now you're kind of weaponizing all of that and weaponizing DV being exposed in front of a child and the child literally getting hurt because of this violent situation. And you're weaponizing that now by trying to plug season 5 of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Just, it doesn't make sense. It all feels really, really gross because this situation is very, very serious. And it's been heartbreaking to watch. We have to start thinking about the effects this is going to have on Ever, as well as the behavior that the other women are engaging in and how it's going to affect their relationships, their family, and their own children. Right now, the only real criticism I have with all of the other women is probably Jessie because it just seems like she flip-flops and goes back and forth. And what's also incredibly disheartening is Taylor and Dakota are already fighting on the internet today. So less than 24 hours. I filmed this on Friday, May 1st, and the hearing was on April 30th. Less than 24 hours later, they're arguing back and forth in comments. There really should have been like a no contact order on top of the TRO. Now, Draper's wasn't the only support declaration. Taylor's younger sister, Aspen May, also filed an affidavit in Taylor's favor, and Taylor herself filed an affidavit alongside 2 new court exhibits with names that tell their own story. One titled Kicking Admission and another titled Abusive Texts. Now, the exhibits Taylor submitted deserve attention because they represent something this case has been missing: documentation in real time. The abusive text exhibit contained text message exchanges between Taylor and Dakota in which Taylor references injuries she sustained. Her April 7th protective order filing, obtained by The Hollywood Reporter, had already included text conversations alongside photos of bruises on her arms, leg, and face. But the fact that Taylor titled this exhibit Abusive Texts signals that these messages show Dakota acknowledging or discussing the violence, not just Taylor alleging it after the fact. The kicking admission exhibit is even more pointed. The title alone implies that Dakota admitted in writing, in a message, or in some documented form to kicking Taylor. Now, Swinyard had already alleged in court that Dakota kicked Taylor while she was on the ground during the May 2025 incident and presented photos of significant bruising. So if the kicking admission exhibit corroborates that allegation with Dakota's own words, it directly undermines his legal team's framing of him as purely a victim. Now, Dakota, for his part, submitted his own supplemental exhibits to the court, including photographs of the scratches and other injuries that he says he sustained from Taylor. His attorney also filed Dakota's formal response to Taylor's protective order request. Now, Swinyard also tried to build a broader case that Dakota's behavior constituted as coercive control, not just physical violence. He alleged that Dakota was possessive throughout the relationship, going through Taylor's phone and monitoring her communications. Taylor's protective order filing had previously alleged that as the Bachelorette premiere approached, Dakota became increasingly possessive. Now, I don't know if you would call that coercive control. I think you can definitely call it calculated and manipulative and evil if you're really trying to destroy someone's career. But if there is the constant threat of retaliation and Dakota was actually threatening her, then I do think that there is an element to coercive control, because if you know there's going to be a punishment if you date somebody else or speak out against somebody hurting you, and you're kind of holding something like that over their head, it would absolutely be deemed coercive control. Now, Swinyard pointed to a detail that sounds minor, but it actually speaks to a larger pattern. Dakota has Taylor's initials tattooed on the inside of his lip, which Taylor's team characterized as evidence of possessive behavior. Dakota's attorney pushed back on that framing, saying that multiple men on the Mormon Wives shows got lip tattoos of their partners' names as part of a humorous scene that hasn't even aired yet. And if it hasn't aired yet, that means it would be in season 5, which Taylor would have been filming after she returned from filming The Bachelorette, which means that while she would have been engaged to her finalist on The Bachelorette, Dakota would have been tattooing her name on his inside of his lips. So would that mean they are still romantically involved? And then it begs the question, so was she cheating on her new fiance with Dakota, which is something that many people have been alleging, but people are also alleging that she is currently kind of juggling the man that she got engaged to on The Bachelorette with the man we saw in season 4 of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives named Ben, and she is just kind of in her single girl era. I don't know, but in my opinion, it is all a mess. If I could sit her down and gently tell her that she needs to just pause and turn off the phone, go back offline because she's back on after just a few days of being off the internet, and express to her that it's vitally important for her mental health, her physical health, and for her children's health, her health of her relationships, how incredibly important it is to dial things back, focus on her family, take a step back from public life. That's what I would really, really want to see from her. I want to see that growth, and I don't know if we'll see it if she continues to engage in this public life. So whether you consider this lip tattoo possessive or a joke depends on which narrative you're going to believe. But the fact that it came up in a protective order hearing tells you just how granular this fight has really become. Now, Taylor's side also argued that she has held herself accountable for her past behavior, pointing to her guilty plea, her completion of court-ordered programs, and her public acknowledgement of fault, while Dakota, they argued, is denying the majority of Taylor's claims against him. The judge reportedly noted, however, that Taylor made the same statements about accountability at the time of her 2023 arrest, suggesting some skepticism about whether the accountability is genuine or performative. So now, after all of that, what is Dakota's attorney saying? Well, Brent Salazar Hall framed his client as a victim of repeated physical abuse who is trying to break free of a cycle of violence. He leaned heavily on Taylor's 2023 aggravated assault guilty plea as evidence of an established pattern. Regarding the February 2026 incident, Salazar Hall presented a different version of the truck altercation. He said Taylor tried to interfere with Dakota's driving by squeezing his face, and that Dakota shoved her away in response to that. Taylor's team, of course, says Dakota slammed her head into the dashboard. Salazar Hall also argued that Taylor uses their son as a pawn to start fights, which is an allegation that was previously raised at the April 7th hearing. He said Dakota was a victim of abuse from Taylor, but that she kept luring him back with text messages inviting him over for intimacy. That framing positions Dakota as someone who has been repeatedly drawn back into a harmful relationship, which, if true, is a dynamic that many DV advocates would recognize as a very common pattern, regardless of which partner is the primary aggressor. Now, Dakota's friend and roommate, Crew Eaton, was in the courtroom to support him. And after the hearing, Eaton expressed frustration with the outcome, calling it a joke and pathetic. He told NBC News, quote, "Taylor needs help and I don't trust her with ever. It's almost like an impossible battle when she's backed by ABC and Hulu," unquote. And now that last line is pretty notable because it's the suggestion that Disney's institutional support gives Taylor an unfair advantage in custody proceedings. So, whether that's true or just frustrated venting, it reflects a perception that the entertainment industry's involvement has tilted the playing field. Now, after 2 hours of allegations, counter allegations, and a judge telling them both to grow up, essentially, the hearing ended. The mutual protective orders were granted. 3 years, 100 feet, criminal charges if violated. And then Taylor Frankie Paul walked across the courtroom and hugged Dakota Mortensen's mother, and both women started to cry. In a tiny Salt Lake City courtroom, after a hearing in which both sides accused the others of physical violence, manipulation, and endangering a child, the woman at the center of it all embraced the mother of the man she's legally barred from approaching, and Dakota's mother hugged her back. I don't think that's something that lawyers orchestrate, and I don't know if it's a PR move or not. It could be two women who are connected through a child and who, despite everything their children have done to each other, still share something that transcends the legal proceedings. It's kind of the most human moment we've seen in a story that's been almost entirely consumed by content cycles, court filings, and internet outrage. Now, no custody decision was finalized yesterday. The current arrangement stays in place where Dakota maintains that temporary custody as the primary caregiver, and Taylor gets 8 hours per week of supervised visits. I believe earlier I said it was 6 hours, but I do believe it's actually 8. So I think I misspoke earlier in this video. However, the judge signaled that changes may be coming and said that he is contemplating lifting supervision on Taylor's visits and expressed a preference for gradually moving towards a 70-30 custody split in Taylor's favor, which would restore something closer to the arrangement she had before the protective orders were filed when she had primary custody. Now, Taylor's attorney described the restricted access as excruciating, not just for Taylor, but for her two older children, Indy and Ocean, who are separated from their half brother for most of the week. Now, again, I want to remind us all there are allegations that she actually missed some of her visitation in that limited time frame. So I feel like it could be a little bit performative if she's saying how difficult this is for her. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that the judge is going to go back and give her more custody, but it could be because she does have a much larger support system in Utah than Dakota does, as far as I know. I don't think Dakota has a ton of family that live there, and Taylor's family really help her with her kids. So that could be part of it, but I'm not 100% sure. So this is not, sadly, the end of this saga. I really, really hope that everyone involved starts taking better care of themselves, stops engaging in online arguing and fighting and drama. And I really hope that Taylor and Dakota both get the help that they very, very desperately need. And I really hope for the safety of the children involved because it's absolutely heartbreaking that they're getting, roped into all of this with two very dysfunctional parents who, like the judge has said, will be involved in each other's lives forever because of the child. I think it's a really, really good lesson to everyone and anyone who's been in a toxic relationship. At one point, one of you has to be the one to walk away. The only thing keeping these two people together is ever. And I think that due to the pressures within the religious environment that both of these people grew up in, there seems to be this pressure to try to make it work with your partner if a child is involved. And if you know that something is this volatile, you really need to step away and absolutely not bring a child into a dynamic like this because it's only going to damage all of you. I think this is a fantastic lesson for all of us who are watching from the outsides on how complicated DV dynamics can be. Because I think as much as we want one person to be the aggressor and the other person to be the victim, in this scenario, it just feels like both are at fault and both have healing to do and both have growing to do. And I think that's what's most frustrating for a lot of people. It also brings up so many themes of how scary retaliation might be, the desire to ruin a partner's success to try to pull their attention away and back onto you. There are just so many dangerous dynamics present in this situation. And so I think that if we can all kind of collectively focus on the lessons we can learn from this situation instead of more of the salacious parts of it, maybe it will in fact help us all become better people. And if we are in that kind of dangerous, toxic dynamic, I really hope that it will allow people to recognize that sooner and faster and get out of the dangerous situation. If someone is causing this much turmoil in your life, whether you're from Taylor's perspective or Dakota's perspective, you just need to get away from them. You need to stay away from people or friends that put you in situations where you're forced to be around them, and you need to avoid any job opportunities that kind of force you two together for the drama. So, I really hope this is a lesson to all of us. I hope it's a really big lesson to producers of reality television about how dangerous trying to like force a narrative and keep the drama going on television can actually have real life consequences. And I really hope that it allows us all to take these toxic, violent situations more seriously, recognize the red flags, and get out before it's too late, before it escalates to something that is so damaging and scary. So I can't wait to hear what you all think down below. I know this is like an exhausting, ongoing saga, but don't worry, I've got some more deep dives planned for you all in May. I really appreciate your time and attention to this serious matter. I hope that you feel like you learned something, or if there's something I missed out and you'd like to educate me, share your insight down below. And in the meantime, please stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. I'll see you in my next video soon. Bye, everyone.